Hello, this is Tessa Kegel, and this is HBS 5 OHC, Identifying and Controlling Hazards, Mitigation of Health Impacts, Neurotoxicity and Neuropsychological Issues. And this is Module 8, Part 1. This is the Commonwealth of Australia Copyright Warning Act, which covers these lectures. So the objectives for this lecture are first of all to identify and describe the nature and sources of neurotoxic substances and their acute and chronic mechanisms of action on the neurological system. To access, interpret and apply information about the health effects of selected neurotoxic hazards in the workplace. To articulate the routes of entry of neurotoxic substances to humans. To identify the appropriate requirements for and use of expert assistance to reduce workers' neurotoxin hazard exposures and manage related dose and health impacts. To articulate the basic principles of neuropsychological assessment. To develop, evaluate and maintain a safe system of work based on accurate information relating to workplace control of exposures to neurotoxins. So, neuropsychological changes can occur subtly and are frequently initially not even noticed by occupational health practitioners or by the workers themselves. The cause of the neurological problems may be associated with the workplace, for example, due to chemical exposures, related to some underlying disease process, such as multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, dementia, or a brain tumour, or in the case of acute onset as a result of an assault to the brain, for example, a blow to the head or a motor vehicle accident. If the onset is more gradual in nature, the worker may consciously or unconsciously adapt their behaviour to accommodate emotional changes. Consequently, early signs of neurotoxicity may be overlooked, so this may result in serious and irreversible damage. This module aims to provide an understanding of the mechanisms of action and effects of neurotoxicity on the human body. It explores the relationship and strategies for hazard identification and control of exposures. Particular attention is directed to brain function, especially cognitive and higher order abilities, as this is poorly addressed in much of the OHS literature. Now, neurotoxicity has been defined as the alteration of normal function of the nervous system as the result of exposure to natural or artificial neurotoxicants. The damage may be specific to a particular cell type, a given region, or a particular function. These differences may be very important from a diagnostic perspective. This selective vulnerability is important because toxic exposures lead to different clinical syndromes, depending on the locations and cell types affected. Clinical presentations may include some combination of headache, pain, cognitive and psychiatric disturbances, visual changes, seizures, tremors, rigidity, weakness, and sensory loss. So now for an historical perspective on neurotoxicity. Hippocrates documented neurotoxicity following occupational exposure to chemicals as early as 370 BC in relation to lead. But it was not until the mid-1970s that neurophysiological and neuropathological techniques enabled increased investigation of the mechanisms behind the effects of such exposures, and therefore more behavioural or functional aspects of health effects and deficits began to be recorded. By 1985, some 764 chemicals had been documented as being neurotoxic, 65 of them commonly occurring in industry or in the environment. These include substances such as carbon monoxide, carbon tetrachloride, mercury, and lead. Only 9 of these had been investigated in usual workplace exposure situations. Now, since the 1980s, increased recognition has been given internationally to address this lack of research in detecting neurotoxic effects of occupational environmental exposures. So regular symposia have been held under the auspices of the World Health Organization and the International Labour Organization and the United Nations Environment Programme. So some examples of neurotoxic chemicals and their impact on health can be found in the following tables. Now, both of these have been drawn from Richard's 2008, page 263. So first of all, examples of neurotoxic chemicals and their impact on health. So we have aluminum, so neuropathy, degenerative changes in the cortex, arsenic, neuropathy, axonal degeneration in the peripheral nervous system, methyl mercury, neuropathy, neural degeneration, methanol, neuropathy, necrosis of putamen, degeneration of retinal ganglion cells, acrylamide, axonopathy, axonal degeneration, hexachlorophene, myelinopathy, brain swelling, intramyelinic edema in the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, demoic acid, neurotransmitter-associated injury and neural loss, delirium, myelinopathy, demyelinating neuropathy, cuprizone, myelinopathy, edema and gliosis, lead, neuropathy, brain swelling, axonal loss, carbon tetrachloride, neuropathy, enlarged astrocytes in the striatum. And I do apologise for mispronunciation with many of those. This table has common organic solvents which can produce neurological disorders. So acetone, which is a cleaning solvent, acrylamide, which is used for mining and tunnelling, adhesives, waste treatment and ore processing, benzene, which is used as a fuel or in fuel in detergents, paint removers and manufacture of other solvents, carbon disulfide, which is used in viscose rayon, explosives, paints, preservatives, textiles, rubber cement, varnishes and electroplating, N-hexane, which is used in glues and vegetable extraction, components of naphtha, lacquers, metal cleaning compounds, hydrogen sulfide, which is used in sulfur, chemical manufacturing as a byproduct of petroleum processing and decay of organic matter, perchloroethylene, which is used as a dry cleaning agent, degreaser and in the textile industry, styrene, which is used in fiberglass component and shipbuilding, and toluene, which is used in paint, fuel, oil, cleaning agents, lacquers, paints, and paint thinners. Exposure monitoring. OHS practitioners may need to monitor or consider the possible effects of exposure to neurotoxins on workers. It's important to understand how these conditions can develop and what health effects from acute or chronic exposures can be assessed. Now, this is particularly important in terms of brain function that impacts upon how a person behaves and thinks. These effects can often be subtle and mistaken for other things, such as alcohol or drug dependence. So it's important that the OHS practitioner is cognizant of the possible effects of neurotoxins on this aspect of worker health.